Hey everyone, we're live on Facebook and Instagram. Real excited today. GGinspire here to share with you an interesting topic today. This is the show for entrepreneurs, and I'm here to inspire people to do better, to be able to create the greatest life that they've ever imagined, and we all deserve it. So I'm going to invite a couple people. Thanks for joining us, and we'd love to have you. Please feel free. You want to say hello, be interactive, ask us some questions. I would love to hear some of your thoughts. Today's topic is going to be why nice guys finish last. So if there's some of you out there that are in business or that you work for somebody else and you think to yourself, like, why do I always feel like I'm trying to be nice to everybody and maybe they take advantage of me, or how come my boss is not nice to me, or how come this happens, or how come that happens? I think it's super, super important to be more aware of what's going on around you. And as an entrepreneur, you're going to take on certain things that you don't realize, they may affect the way that you might have acted before. So as an entrepreneur, I've gone through a lot of changes over the years. I didn't start as an entrepreneur. I started, as a student. I wanted to study hard, get good grades, like my parents told me, and go have a great life because that's what you're supposed to have. But I realized very quickly, hey, Angie, I really realized very quickly that things didn't happen, or they weren't going to happen the way that I thought they were. Thanks for joining us, Erica. So this is the show really to kind of talk about why it is that we feel like we have to be almost like we have to be hard. We have to be a hard ass, in order to be successful and be able to get what we want. Well, it's not that simple, but you do have to make sure that you're leading, because in a place of leadership, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're self-employed, you can lead yourself and it's no big deal. But even some self-employed people, they have employees, right? Or they have a staff, the people that are working with them. And so they have to learn how to lead. So as a business owner, especially, like if you're going to take your little business that's, you and maybe a couple people, or even just you initially, like you have to learn how to lead yourself and sometimes be tough with yourself. So if you're going to turn that into an actual business that thrives and is very profitable, what have you, then there's some things that you're going to have to work on about yourself. And I am continuing to work on those things. And one of the reasons why I do GGinspire is so I can actually do some research and think about how to grow and how to get better as a person, as a parent, as a wife, as a leader, and be better for my staff and my team, right? Because at the end of the day, like we're in this entrepreneurial journey to create a great life for ourselves. So let's get after it and do everything we can for it. So please let me know if you've ever felt like you're the nice guy that's finishing last. I think that's an important thing. And ask me any questions that you have in that regard. I think this will be really great. Hey, Susie. Hey, Jason. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so I got this article. Jewel is amazing. She's like, one of my like master researchers, I feel like. So she gave me this article and we thought that it was pretty interesting. So when it comes to business, sometimes nice guys do finish last. And this was written last year by Chris Meyer. So I want to give him credit because I think this is a pretty cool thing. Nanda, yay! Thanks for joining us. Stacy, Jewel, awesome. Love it. Okay, so, what he was talking about, and I thought this way too, because people always describe us like when my husband and I people get to know us, they think of us as completely opposite. They think that I am like, I'm kind of like maybe rough around the edges. I'm a little tough. I'm a little aggressive, but I'm really a softie on the inside. Like I'm real sensitive, and I really want to make sure that I'm nice to people and they're not mad at me and stuff like that. And I think over the years that's become a bigger part because I used to like not even care at all. But now. And my husband is the opposite. They always see him as like nice and sweet and quiet and nurturing and all that stuff. But he's like, you get him mad, like he'll take you out. You know what I mean? I've seen him do some stuff over the years. No, I will not share that, honey, with the world. But I've seen him do some stuff over the years, and I'm like, are you kidding? Like that was terrible. Hey, Brian, thanks for joining us. So it's, you never know what people are capable of, but remember, like in business and even in relationships, oftentimes people are like, I really want to be liked and I really want people to feel good about, our relationship and how things go. But as a leader, you're not always able to do that. So, my attitude has been like, I want to be a kinder, like gentler leader. Like I've seen some of the leaders that I've worked with that I'm like, gosh, they're kind of like tough and they're not that approachable. And like, I want to be warmer. I want people to feel like they can come to me and they can ask me questions and we can all like, have a big laugh and everything will be really cool. But it doesn't always work that way. So when you're you know, if you're a softie in business, like think about it. If you've ever had like a boss or two, and you had one that was like really firm and really together and really like had everything like, look, this is how it is. Now they weren't mean to you, they weren't rude to you, but they were like, here's the line and this is how it's going to be. They were firm about it. And then you had that boss that was like wishy-washy, that really wanted to be your friend, but you knew that like you could kind of like push them over and, you know, they would like do what you wanted them to do. That's not a boss that you respected. That's not somebody as a leader that you respected. So if you want to be the kind of leader who earns respect and it can actually grow a business that does well, you have to be firm and you have to accept the fact that people are not always going to like it, right? Somebody's giving me mad emojis. I don't know who it is. Maybe it's Jason. Oh, he's mad because I let out his secret that he's not actually that quiet. He's actually a total loudmouth, but a lot of people have figured that out. Anyway, so anyway, what I was saying was that, you know, you have to hold the line. Like if you have to try and understand others' position. Like if you try and understand others' position, but what happens is that if you're spending all this time trying to make sure that they understand how you feel and you understand how they feel, you end up getting into this whole conversation that most of the time, now sometimes you have a mutual understanding, but what happens most of the time is you get a lot of contention, you get a lot of frustration where people are like, yeah, well, I understand your side of it, but I still don't agree, right? And it just becomes like long-term frustration in business. And so sometimes as a leader, you just have to say, here's what we're gonna do. This is the way it is. I know you may not like it, but here's the facts, right? This is what we have to do. So, you know, it's a way that you can improve your situation and make it better because you got to lead your business the right way, right? So like your soft approach as a leader where you're like trying to sugarcoat it, and I do this and I'm totally guilty of it, like where I'm trying to like, you know, do a soft approach and, you know, tell somebody like, well, hey, you know, you made this mistake and, you know, it's okay, but if you could maybe not do it again, that'd be really great. Like, you know, you're not helping them. Like Andy Frisella talks about it all the time. Like, tell people the freaking truth. Like, just be honest with them because you're only hurting them because at the same time, like, you're sugarcoating something when they need to know and they're thinking like, oh, well, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Like, oh, that was so nice that she was trying to give me feedback, but then they don't listen to it, right? So here's the deal. What you have to do is you actually have to be firm about it. You don't have to be rude, but you have to, like I said, draw a line in the sand and say, look, that was a mistake. Here's what will happen if those mistakes continue. Here's why I want to make sure that you don't make those mistakes anymore. You can do this. I know you're awesome. And you tell them their gifts, you know, tell them the good things about the way that they are, like that we're supposed to do. And I'm working on this myself, is the bun, meat, bun method. So you tell people how awesome they are, the great things that they bring to the table, give them your constructive criticism, try not to be rude, right? And then give them the bun at the other side, right? So like, and you're going to be awesome, and here's why, because you're a great person, you have a great family, and your work ethic is awesome, and you know, do those kinds of things to warm them up. But you've got to be able to be direct, right? Because if you're not direct, you're only hurting them. And so be okay with the fact that people are not always going to like you. And I have a hard time with this sometimes, right? And I'm working on it. You're going to be the villain sometimes because you're going to have to deliver messages that nobody wants to hear. They deliver messages that have to do with, like, you know, if it's a staff and you have employees, like letting people go, or you're going to have to deliver messages about things that are going to cost more money for your team or whatever. You know, you're going to have to deliver like all the crappy messages that have to go out. It's on you, buddy, right? Because you got to make it happen, and you're the one that has to do it. And so who they're going to blame, even though it might be, you know, it might be somebody else's fault, the leader usually is going to take the responsibility, and they have to own it. The leader who has all the responsibility and all taking all that stuff on, like the one who has the most opportunity and the most reason to be able to feel down, doesn't get to feel down and doesn't get to show it. But here's the deal, guys. Like, if you want to be a leader, the more that you can grow and accept the fact that people are not always going to agree with you, they're not always going to like what you do, but they're going to respect the fact that you drew a line in the sand and you stuck to your guns. Like, that's most important in a leadership capacity, is being fair and making sure that you're doing things the right way. And you're not bending the rules for this person and bending the rules for that person, because that creates discontent, it creates distrust, and it just creates like apathy, where people are like, you know, what, her word doesn't mean anything, or his word doesn't mean anything anyway, right? Have you ever had a boss like that? Comment, you guys. Tell me. You don't have to tell me like the name of the person, but tell me, like, did you have a boss, or did you work a certain place where you had a boss that was wishy-washy, or you knew you could push them over, or, you know, they played favorites? I know people have had that experience. I've had it in pretty much every job I've ever had. I mean, I haven't had a job in probably almost 10 years, but I've always seen bosses play favorites, or, this group, gets away with everything and this group doesn't get away with anything. And it's not fair. And it really undermines the authority of the boss, and it makes you not really recognize what they're able to bring to the table. It makes you value them less, right? So don't sugarcoat the messages, be honest. But here's the deal. If you're too aggressive, then it's going to be even more, because if you're leading a charge for your business, you don't want to come from a place of being so aggressive, because it's really about your self-interest. So this is what is his name? His name is Chris. So enlightened self-interest is what they talk about, right? So if you have to have long-term thinking, doing what's right versus doing what's popular and what's expedient. And so what you may get opposition. You may have people that tell you, hey, Kim, you may have people that tell you, I don't like what you're telling me, and I don't think that that's right. But your job is to say, well, here's why I know it's right and what I've seen in the past, and that's it. There's only so much explanation that you're going to have to give in order to be able to make sure. And if they don't agree with it, that's okay. But at the end of the day, it's your responsibility. If you own a business, you're an entrepreneur, and you want to kick ass and make that great life for you and your family, and be on the beach one day and have an operation that's running for you, right? You have to make sure that people understand why you're doing it and stick to your guns. Because if you have the vision, it has to be in line with the vision of what you want to be able to create for your life. When you do that, and you continue to be consistent that way, then the people that understand it, that are loyal, that make sense of it, right? They can actually help implement that, and they can help explain that to the next generation of people, or the next staff, or the next employees. And that's what you want, is you want people that are close enough to you that they understand that what vision you're trying to create and why certain things are being done a certain way, okay? And so giving like extra latitude to people, it may not like affect things now, but it has a big impact, because it really does affect your reputation. And it also affects team morale, because if they hear like, oh, you gave so-and-so this, but you didn't give me that, why didn't you do that? It's something that can definitely affect your business long-term, right? Okay, so Serena says, I've had plenty of different bosses, especially over-aggressive bosses. Yeah, and I try not to be like a micromanaging type of boss, but I'll tell you, at the end of the day, like sometimes you have to be, even though that may not be your leadership style. And it depends. Like when you're dealing with different people, you might have to do it different ways. But at the end of the day, you have to hold the line, but you have to strike a very delicate balance. So it's a delicate balance between being honest with people, being upfront, and not being rude, not being aggressive, but being very firm and what they call it, assertive, right? Assertive and direct in your thoughts and your opinions, and letting people know this is how it is, right? It's not a personal attack. It's his business, right? So again, I'm working on these things myself, but I have a couple of questions. So if you guys have any questions, please chime in, because I want to, answer all I can. But I had one the other day that said, I feel like as a business owner, people want me to always say yes, right? How do I say no and still be considered fair? So this is an interesting question, because one of the things that's ideal in business is to surround yourself with people that don't always say yes to you. Right? Like you don't want the people that are like, oh my gosh, that was awesome. And you're so great. And that was good. And this all the time, because you want people that can be honest with you and give you actual feedback and say, yeah, that was good, but you really need to work on X, Y, Z. So that's actually a better thing. And it helps a lot more because at the end of the day, like you want to be able to improve and get better, and you want somebody's honest opinion. Being somebody who says yes all the time, it's not going to serve you. So if you feel like yes, it's something that we can do, great. But I go to my mentors. I talk to Michael Coleman all the time, and I say, hey, what do you think about this idea? And sometimes he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. I think you could probably do this, but you might want to make some tweaks and adjustments. And then sometimes he's like, no, that's not going to work. Don't do it, and here's why. Right? So you have to make sure that you have to go with your gut, and you also have to leverage experience. And sometimes it's okay to say, you know what? Let me ask some more questions. Like maybe you want to talk to a mentor before you answer that question. If it's one that you know and you're well experienced with it, then answer it, whether it's a yes or a no. But you know what's best, because what happens is and I've had this experience in business where I've done certain things and it didn't work out, and my mentors told me don't do that. And then somebody came to me and said, oh, well, is it okay if I do this? And I want to be their friend and I want them to like me. And I'm like, Yeah, it's okay for you to do that, but generally we don't do it that way. And that just hinders everybody because you're not following whatever established system that you had laid out. So who does it hurt? It hurts everybody, right? And it also hurts that person because then they're getting used to the idea that they don't have to do it in line with the way that the system is or whatever is running at that point in that office, in that employment, whatever. So you guys have to know that if you want to lead a business, you need to get really clear on what it is that you want and how your system runs in order to be able to run it effectively so that it can continue to run. I hope that answers your question. So being fair, it actually requires, like, you have to be fair about it because you need, if you establish what it is that is normal for you and is what's good practice for your business, and you stick to that, then you're in a good position. But being fair requires self-awareness, but it also requires you being honest with yourself, because I've made some like total bonehead mistakes that I go back and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could have done it over, but I don't get the chance to. You don't get do-overs in this world. Nice leaders tend to focus on like giving good feedback, and they want to say all the good stuff, but they don't necessarily want to say the bad stuff because the bad stuff doesn't feel as good. And they avoid confrontation. But confrontation, it's actually okay. It's a healthy thing. Like, not confrontation like we're not going, to blows, but it's okay to have an honest conversation about things and be able to say, like, hey, we don't agree on this. Here are my thoughts. Here are your thoughts. Okay, well, here's the resolution that we've got to go through, but you have to lead. You're a leader, right? If everybody was in a leadership position, then we'd all have tons of opinions all the time. We wouldn't have the kind of structure in this country that we do. We have people that lead, they run companies, right? People that lead that are in political places. We've got celebrities. We've got all these things that are like, high profile figures, like all these people lead in some capacity. And so in this day and age, like now you have to lead, but you have a lot of people that are watching what you're doing. And they have commentary. They're not always going to agree with you. And their opinion is okay to have. But if you know what your goal is, and their opinion may not matter at that point because it may not have an effect on what your overall goal is. So if you don't know what your overall goal is and your why of what you're doing it for, that's when it gets challenging. So, but you also have to be clear on your role in it, okay? Hey, Marco. Hey, Serena, I thought you were in here. And then Sean, thanks for joining us. So let us know. Tell me, like, give me some boss horror stories. I'd love to hear about some of your crazy bosses in the past. Because one day, hopefully, you will be one. And you'll be running your own business and you'll figure out, what do you want to do? What do you not want to do? That's what it is at the end of the day. I'm thinking about all the things that I've seen. Like, I used to have a boss when I worked at Nordstrom years ago, and she would get so stressed out right before a sale. Like, we'd have all this set up and everything, and she would yell and scream. And I was like, okay, so yelling and screaming, I don't really like how that feels. I'm going to make sure I don't do that myself to the people that I work with. And fortunately, I don't think I've ever done that. I don't know. Some of you guys may comment and say, yeah, you've yelled at me once or twice before. But anyway, so I think that it helps to be able to get clear. Hey, Liz, it was so good to see you this weekend, and we had the greatest talk. Okay, but I'll see you at the wedding very soon. Okay, so let's see. What else? I have other questions. Oh, my old boss has trouble admitting when she's wrong. How do I keep from making that same mistake? Okay, so this is a really important thing, is to be able to admit that you make mistakes. I freely, openly admit that I make mistakes constantly. I make them all the time, right? So, and I'm not afraid of it because I know that actually helps me know that I don't expect myself to be perfect. Now, if you would have talked to me probably, 5 or 6 years ago, I would tell you, I strive to be the best that I can. I want to be perfect. I think a lot of us have this, I need to be perfect, and if it's not ideal, then I should just like chuck it all and I shouldn't even bother. That is a really wasted mentality because it wastes a lot of energy, getting yourself to fit into this perfection of what you believe it's going to be, like what your business is going to be or what your transaction is going to be or whatever. And you spend a lot of time beating yourself up because it's not perfect, when it will never be perfect. There will always be flaws. There will always be challenges. But it's better for you to accept the fact that there are challenges and you're going to make mistakes and be good about it, right? So that you can actually learn from them. So when somebody comes to you and says, hey, I didn't like the way that you talked to me, or you didn't think of me in this regard, accept it. Grant them importance. Let them know that their opinion is valuable. Hey, this is, I apologize that I I might have missed thinking about you in that scenario. And, you know, here's what I was thinking about, but I'll do my best to make sure in the future that I always include you in those types of decisions, right? So grant them importance, but also let them know that, look, let's move forward, right? Because you can admit that you've made mistakes, but if you live in those mistakes, it's going to be challenging and you're not going to be able to move forward and have the great life that you want. That's what we're doing this for. Oh, Jewel, okay, thank you for adding a question. So how does one overcome taking action in business, like calling a client and asking for past due payment, especially if you don't want to lose the client? Well, so clients are, you know, maybe a little bit different thing, but you do have to let them know and you have to remind them of the value, right? So if you're, whatever it is that they're a client of, right? Like, so in our business, it's finance, retirement insurance, whatever, right? So in our business, like, you have to make sure that you remind that client of the value of what it is that they have, right? That they've purchased. Because when they understand the value, then the cost or the price or whatever it is isn't that important to them, right? So if you bring them enough value and you can remind them of how that product or service or what have you is in line with what they want to be able to create for their life, it's in line with their goals, right? Or it saves them money, it saves them time, it makes them money, you know, solves a problem for them. If you remind them of those things, and then you see where it leads. Because usually when you remind people of those things, they're like, oh yeah, this is so much more important to me than the new shoes that I wanted to get. So, you know, I think that you have to be mindful and understand, yes, because they're going to tell you, like, my dog died, I had got in a car accident, all these things happen, yes, and I totally understand those things, and that must be really rough for you, you know, but at the same time, life is always going to happen, and I want to make sure that I can help you save money, save time, and make sure that you have these things in place to be able to protect you for the rest of your life and protect your family. Because God forbid if something happened to you in that car accident, what would happen then, right? What would your kids do? So you have to make sure that you are clear about what it is that you're offering, or what it is that they've already purchased, if they're already a client, continues to benefit them and will continue to make a difference in their lives. But be nice about it, you know, like, be polite, but also be firm and let them know that I know that this was important to you when we sat down, and I want to make sure I keep up my end of the bargain. Okay. Does that help, Joel? I hope so. All right, Serena, thank you. How do you separate the emotion and logic when working with individuals you love, clients, colleagues, etc.? You know what? I'm still working on this, because I think when you work with people in close capacity, you have business, right? If you're working with them in a business, or you're working with them in a job, you work with them in close capacity, so you get close. So undoubtedly, you're going to blur the lines between, like, friends and colleagues or business partners or whatever. And I think that, in my honest opinion, I don't really think that you can separate business and personal. I think that they are all interrelated. I think we try, because even though, like, I may not like something that happened, like, I do take stuff personally. Like, as much as I try not to, I do take stuff personally. But I have to stand back and I have to think about, okay, so what would be the smartest, and as a leader, what would be the smartest way to deal with this that's best for the organization, that's best for the team? Like, I really try, I really do my best to have a team over me mentality, right? So if I'm personally hurt, that really needs to go to the side. But I really need to think from a business standpoint, how can I help to make sure that this person improves, or this person or this situation gets better for the overall good of the team and the organization and the business? And that's thinking like a leader. It's not easy, because personally you may have your feelings hurt. But if you take that part out of it, if you can, like, I don't know, if you can wrestle that part out of it for a little bit so that you can start thinking about it logically. It's difficult to sometimes separate the emotion and the logic, but maybe even writing it down, like journaling it down and thinking about, like, what bothered you about it. And then some of the emotions may come out, because once you put it on paper, the emotions come out and you can start thinking logically about, okay, so what's the best next step in order to be able to do this properly and handle it quickly. Don't let it fester. Don't let it go on for, like, days and weeks and months, right? Because then what happens is people explode, right? They explode, and then it becomes like a huge, huge thing. And it didn't have to be that. It could have been a simple conversation. Let's just handle it, move on, take care of it, right? So that's what I would do. and it's going to be a constant work in progress. And some people are, higher level as far as emotions, and some people are higher level as far as logic. So if you're a super emotional person and you're dealing with somebody who's very logical, then talking to them on an emotional level is going to be very difficult. And that's one of the reasons I appreciate PCM, the process communication model, and talking to people on the level that they're at. So if they come to you and they're super emotional, if you come at them with logic, they're totally not going to hear you, right? So you have to remember who you're dealing with and kind of speak to them on the channel that they're on. That's the best thing you can do. Okay, so more questions. So how do you change a personality trait? It takes a lot of work. I would say, you don't change them, but I think you can develop other ones, is what I would say. Like my personality is I'm very, based on PCM, and I know not everybody knows what that is, but I'm very I like things a certain way. I have that perfection thing in me, right? But I also like data and I like numbers. And so when I started in business, I was really thought everything should happen faster. But then I was like, okay, well, maybe if I know all the data, it'll be easier and that'll be better for me. But it still didn't happen that way. So it's not that I tried to change my personality trait. Oftentimes what happens is if you have enough stress long enough, your personality traits may change a little bit, but you have to learn how to exercise them. So sometimes it's even getting around people that have some of the exercise, so they have some of the traits that you want, right? If you spend more time with them, maybe they will come out more in you. So spend the time with the people who, maybe if you want to have more energy, then spend the time with the people that have more energy. If you want to be better at the numbers, then spend the time with the people that are better with the numbers. It's not that you're going to change, like you have everything within you. It's just a matter of which ones are you exercising more so that you can connect on a different level. So personality is a really complicated thing, a little bit, deeper than a few minutes in Go Live. But I would just say, exercise what you can by being around people who have what you want, who respond maybe the way that you want your personality to be, right? That's what I would say. That would probably be the quickest answer. Team over me mentality. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Serena. I appreciate it. So last thing, I'm almost done. If anybody has any other questions, let me know. But, recognize when you're wrong. Don't be that lack of transparency and vulnerability. Like, it's okay to be vulnerable as a leader, but you also, when it's time to be strong, you have to step up and be strong. And people have to believe that they can rely on you and they can trust you, right? Because as a leader, you got to make it happen for other people. It's not just you. So nice leaders want to be in constant agreement with people, but it's not going to work that way. So step up, remember, be firm, don't be aggressive, but remember what it is that you're trying to create and how much it can be hindered by you allowing people to kind of feel like they can walk all over you, or they're going to be able to do whatever it is that they want. And you're just going to say yes. That's not leadership. Leadership is, being at the helm and making sure that people have somebody that they can rely on, that they can trust, that they know that there's going to be a consistent opportunity, consistent presence up at the front, leading at the helm, and make sure that consistent rules are going to happen also. And because I've been in business for a long time and I've seen people who are inconsistent when they come to the table. I never know which of them is going to show up. And that is something I really respect in my leadership. Michael Coleman, he's incredible. And Jamie Villalobos, a lot of you guys don't know these people, but I'll tell you, these are people that I pretty much always know who's going to show up that day when I get them on the phone or I talk to them in person. So, find good mentors that you find are great leaders that you want to be more like, and just go out there and do what it is that you want to be able to create, but be clear about it. And, run those ideas and those things by your leaders. Spend more time with your leaders, talk to them more because they've been where you're at, right? So I would just tell you, go out there, have a great life, do everything you can, and be inspired to have greatness in your life. Okay? Take care, everybody. Have a great day.